Hi everyone, it's Heidi from flutterbyheidi.co.uk. I'm Heidi Smith. I'm an independent Stampin' Up demonstrator in the United Kingdom, and one of the things I love making is 3D cards, interactive cards, a fun fold card. So that's what I'm making today, and I'm using the lovely Blessings of Home stamp set. A fabulous stamp set if you like florals, lovely florals, along with some super sentiments as well, because you've got thank you for inspiring me, but you could blank that off as a thank you. What a beautiful day for love, have a perfect birthday. I think this one's great. We can get through anything together, and then you're a real blessing to everyone around you. So that's the stamp set. I'm using the Heart and Home paper, which is kind of, yeah, I do like the paper, but I don't find it as easy to work with as some. But you know, I'm working with it, so I love this paper, and that's what I'm using today, this Super Cinnamon Cider. What I love though about this paper is whilst I don't find these as easy to work with, I love the reverse, which are all these wood grain patterns that you can see, which you can then colour in. So lovely fresh freesia, so that's a bit of a win for me. A bit of misty moonlight there, gorgeous, a lovely wood texture. This one I like with the sprigs and sprays, well, again, and then the green I like as well as a really good generic background one. So I suppose you'd like to see what project I'm making. Might help, mightn't it? So here we go. So here's our card front. You'll see I've used some die cutting. The dies I should have shown you and the stamp set. You've got dies that cut out the main two big floral images, and you've also got these accent dies which cut out flowers and foliage, which is what I've used here just to add a bit of interest. And we've got the sentiment here. I'm using my blender pen for colouring. Really good staple to have in your stash, and the fun bit about this is when you open it, it's a pop-up card. So as it's there, you've got your pretty, you know, green for the garden green for the kind of grass that they're sitting on, and a couple of pop-up bunches of flowers. And as I say, you know, you can pop a sentiment or a panel here for your sentiment, but if you wanted to keep that as it was, all you need to do is pop a panel on the back in white, and you'd be good to go. So let's get started. So the next thing we need to do is to stamp and colour our images. So I've just got some of our basic white cardstock, a couple of pieces here, and I've popped my stamps onto blocks already. Now with this, these are sort of largish stamps, so I'm doing ink pad to stamp, and then just, I'm not sort of letting it set a long time. I don't want it too dark on those. And the same with the larger one. Just all over. I'm using a Memento because I'm going to actually be colouring with my Stampin' blender pen, which obviously has alcohol in it. So I want to be using something that won't react to the alcohol in the blender pen. So just stamp that down. And then I'm just going to use the dies that come with them and lining those up. And I always find it's really helpful to sort of pick a couple of leaves and have a look and just see that you've kind of got the same spacing all the way around, and use a bit of post-it note just to hold that in place. And the same with our other image. I'm just going to trim off the excess there. And pop that on. Where there's a stem, I usually find it helpful to line up the stem at the bottom and then somewhere else on the top. Again, just a bit of post-it note tape to go over those. In my other videos I do show you how to use the stamp apparatus to actually stamp and then die cut and then stamp the image. If I was doing a lot of these, that's what I'd be doing. So here I've got two of those. I've already cut another one of the other ones out, and I'm just going to show you the basic colouring that I'm going to use on these. So I've got a couple of spare blocks here, and I've got my colours. So I'm going to go with some pale papaya, just popping that on the block. I'm going to use a bit of soft succulent, and then a bit of misty moonlight as well to kind of do those sort of forget-me-not type flowers. So plenty of ink on there. Then I've got one of our blender pens. They come in a set of 3, and they are really useful for doing your colouring. So all I do is I just pick up some colour on my pen, and then I'm going to kind of go over those shaded bits first. So the sort of depth of colour, I'm just popping into the centre there. So I'm using the stamped image where those shaded bits are, which would naturally be in shadow. I'm going to do that on all of those first. Just in there as well. As you can see, we're just starting to build up those colours. And then once you've done those, I'm just going to come from the bottom out, and you'll get that slightly more subtle. And where you want it to be a little lighter, just wipe it off on either in the centre again or on your grid paper. And the other way you can do this is to use a wink of Stella. That's another way, that would give you a lovely shine as well then. But on this I just wanted to keep it quite sort of subtle and not too deep with those colours, because you want the sort of, you want the wow factor as well as your sort of artistic colouring to be those that lovely pop-up mechanism in the middle. You can always go back in and add a bit more colour if you want to. When you want to change colour, just brush your marker off a little bit like this, then come in and do exactly the same with our leaves. So just those sort of, where you naturally have that shadow occurring. I see any more leaves? A little bit up here. And it's, the blender pens are a great way when you're starting off, if you've just got a few ink pads and you perhaps haven't yet invested in the Stampin' Blends. These are a lovely way to get a really good use out of all of your water-based ink pads and be able to colour with them as well, and just add a little bit of detail in. So say you can come in a little bit more if you want to. Let's finish those leaves up there, and the soft succulent's a lovely colour, really pretty. I wasn't sort of sure about it at first. We've got so many different greens, but I rather like this more muted sort of greens. There we go. Just a little bit more up here. Okay. So I'm just going to do this other flower here too. A pair of flowers, they kind of look as if they're smaller versions of these blooms. So with this you can see I'm just going over slightly more randomly, then coming in afterwards with a little bit. So you can do it either way. And then for the centres, I think I actually used, I think it was Bumblebee I used. I'm not 100% sure. Let's have a little look. Just for the centre. Here we go. Pop that in the centre there. And while I've got that out, I can do all of the centres of the flowers. Now I can just come in and pop some Misty Moonlight on those as well. And then I shall use the same colour palette inside. So I'm just going to sort of do those. These are a little bit, that's it, that's better. You can see a little bit of darkness there. say, it's a really, you know, it's just a fun way to add some colour. And again, you know, by stamping a memento, you can then use whichever you like, and the blender pens literally just do exactly that. That one might have been one of the other flowers, but hey, there we go. I don't think anyone's going to be critiquing it too much as it's down with the other ones. Just to remind me of forget-me-nots, the little tiny ones. They used to go everywhere in my parents' garden. Just a little bit of blue there. And again, I'm just using the same colour palette that's in the paper, in the pack, just as a way of kind of taking your inspiration from some colours. So there you go, there's our first bloom, and then I'm going to use exactly the same colouring method to colour the one for the inside that you can see here. I think I've used garden green actually rather than soft succulent, but hey, really pretty, but hey, let's get going. So now, as you can see, we've got our 3 panels already coloured. So we're going to go on to the front layers of our card. So I've just cut a piece of pale papaya, which is 8 by 12 centimetres, and I've cut a piece of basic white 7.5 by 11.5 centimetres, and I've popped that through our lovely ornate embossing folder, which is one that I forget I've got, but when I was creating the card, I just felt it needed a little bit extra on the front there, so I felt that this would work really well. So I'm just going to layer that up. When I add embossed layers onto card, I generally use Tombow. I find that this sort of extra dimension that gives to start off with really helps to help that stick. It obviously gets into those sort of nooks and crannies of it as well, and hopefully you can see that lovely embossing there. And obviously the flowers match really well with the little flowers in the die cuts. So I'm going to pop that to one side. If you wanted to, you could always add a little bit of colour on that if you wanted, with a bit of a blending brush, but I just thought I'd keep it still quite nice and simple. I'm going to do my sentiment as well, and I've just cut a strip. It's an offcut, 0.5 centimetre or so of my basic white, and I've got my stamp mounted up here, and I'm just going to pop that stand over, and hopefully that's worked well. And then I've got a similar strip of pale papaya as well. So all I'm going to do is just cut that at an angle like so. I'm going to pop a little bit of adhesive on the back there. Don't really want to use Seal Plus with my seal gone. No, can't be found. Okay. There it is. Just add some seal to the back there, and I'm just going to add that, as I said, to another piece, and I'm going to add it on just slightly overlapping, and then I can just cut that freehand to match, so that can go on the front there. So we're going to have our lovely focal image. We're going to have a perfect birthday, and then that foliage will just add into the background. So I've already cut some of these dies. So if you remember when I showed you the dies, we've got lots of these little foliage and floral images. So I've gone ahead and die cut some of those in the garden green and pale papaya, like so. So you can see I have just sort of picked them out. I've shown you before, I used a little CD plastic envelope to keep those pieces in with my die set, so that I've always got sort of bits and pieces available. And what I thought I'd do is, with these sort of little flowers, I'm just going to pop some of those on in the sort of background as well. I probably had more of them. I probably dropped some. So look, there we go. And there are 2 ways to do this. You can either put little bits of glue on, or another way is to use, of course, our fabulous glue dots. So all I'm going to do is take the flower, and on one of those larger bits, pop it on there. So my flowers are good to go. And then I'm going to, if you like, pop the image kind of in place first to allow for me then to work out where I'm going to pop these sort of extra flowers. And you can just pop them off. And it's just another way of sort of just adding some interest to the background. To have them sort of peeking out like so. And I'll just pop another one just down on the bottom left hand corner here. Like so. Then I can come in and add some of my die cuts. Now these ones I'm just going to sort of add some fronds that are going to come out. So I'm going to have some over in the corner here. These ones, if you want to, grab your silicone mat and you can add some glue onto those. You can either use your seal or you can use some Tombow to sponge on the back there. Again, coming off the edges so that we're sort of just getting a little bit sort of more dimension in there. So I'm probably going to want a little bit in the bottom corner. So that's the rule of threes. You know, they tell you in the garden, don't they? Plant in threes as well. So if you apply that, it's nature tends to go in sort of, you know, in bunches. Okay, and then I'm going to add a little frond of my flowers in here, and another one. And then what I'm actually going to do is just snip that and pop that underneath there, and probably just put again another little bit of some of my garden green. Perhaps just a little bit peeking out there. So there we go, I've got a small one there. And so now we've done that, we can actually pop our dimensionals onto the back of our image. And you can use obviously large or small, whichever suits you. I'm probably going to use my large ones mainly on here. And I'm going to keep the lots of these towards the centre because it's overhanging. So I'm just going to make sure that's well supported. So probably pop a smaller dimensional at the top, just inside, and another one at the bottom there. Clear the deck slightly of all these extra ones. And then there's our floral image. And then pop that over and pop dimensionals on the back here, ready to go on the front of our card. So it's kind of a bit of preparation time with this card, if you like. Just one that, yeah, it takes a bit more time, but I think that's what we want sometimes, something that just takes us a little bit longer. Okay, so that's ready to go on the front of our card. So pop that to one side. So now we can get on with the card construction itself. So for that, you're going to first of all take a card base. Now this is 29 by 10.5 centimetres, so a standard, what I call a standard half A4. I don't do half millimetres on my card fronts very often. You're also going to want a piece that's 14.5 by 10.5 centimetres for the front. So this is going edge to edge on the front there. So we can just pop that. Actually, I'm going to start on this side. There you go, just on the front like so. And I love this one from the bundle with the bees on it, because that then just, you're going to see some of that paper, and you've got that lovely sort of spray effect coming over the side. Okay, now we're going to do our mechanism. So for the mechanism, for the inside, you're going to need 2 more pieces, and I've cut these at 14 by 10 centimetres. I have done the measurements in inches, I'll pop them on my blog, but I wanted them to keep them away from the edges on this, just to make sure, because there's a bit of bulk going on there by the time you've got the mechanism. So 2 pieces like that. You want a piece of card that is 12 by 12 centimetres, and you're just going to score that at 1 centimetre on all 4 sides, or you can go 1, sort of like so. You can actually measure it at 11 if you prefer, if your trimmer works that way. So just 1 centimetre all 4 sides, or 11 centimetres, depending on which side you're measuring. You're then going to score this in half diagonally, and then turn it again, and you're going to cut it in half. And this way you get 2 for 1. You get 2 mechanisms for 1, because I just found that when I did my sample and using the whole, it kind of made it really bulky. So all we're going to do is trim off these corner pieces now, like so, and just reinforce these with your bone folder. Again, it's a mechanism, so you really want to fold these back and forwards a couple of times so they're not too stiff. There we go, like so. Oh, I forgot to put my mechanism on. Right, so this is how it's going to work. So these 2 tabs, you're actually going to put glue on the underside to fit on the inside of the card. Now, this is a mechanism, so I would really recommend that you use either Seal Plus, or that you use a strong tape like this red tape that I've got here. And you want that adhesive to come down to where the mechanism is, the score line, because that's where the strain, if you like, is going to be put on. So if you just pop that like so. So now, this is obviously the front here, this is the inside, and you're going to line this up just inside the bottom of your card. You see here? And then with it meeting up to the, butting up to the middle point, then fold your card over and press really well, and you'll see that's our lovely little mechanism. And we can now pop our DSP on the inside. And I've actually come a little bit away from the edge, so that's going to pop. This is the sort of only slightly awkward bit. I suppose what I could have done is actually pop that in when I'd just done the one side. You know, might have been easier, but and I just thought that I just have liked this image of like a field of flowers. One thing I probably should have done is put the DSP on my mechanism first. So just making sure it's in the right orientation, you're going to pop that second piece of DSP in, like so. And there we go. So that's working well for us. So we can now take our DSP. Now this is 9 by 9 centimetres. Yes, it is. And you're going to cut it in half diagonally. Just line at the points in the track is what I'm doing there. And as I said before, when you're cutting, start in the middle for these, because what you don't want to do is kind of crush that point. There we go. So 2 pieces there. Again, we've got another 2 pieces for another card when we're ready. And again, these are just going to pop. You'll see straight into the side, into those corners there. Now, obviously with triangles, this is where it's really useful to grab your silicone mat. It's something I don't do often enough. It just means the rest of your work so it doesn't get sticky. So popping these in, you might find it easier to use a little bit of wet glue. That'll give you a bit of wiggle room. But if you're confident, then this will work just as well. So you can just pop it in, and you can see here I'm lining this up. As I said, I should have done it while it was flat, really, before I added it to the card. So do as I say, don't do as I do. And let's just pop that one in there as well. So it just adds, again, another bit of interest. And now onto our mechanism. So these are our little pop-ups. I've got a piece of card that is 5 centimetres by 8, and you're just going to score that at 2.5, at 4, at 6.5, and then cut it at 8. Then you're going to pop it back in and just cut it down the middle at 2.5 centimetres, like so. Then again, just reinforce those, make sure they're nice and square as well. Like so. The same on the second one. And these you're going to pop in so that they're kind of narrow end on, if I show you this. So this is going to go on the back of your card, this is going to go on your base. So you want 2 of those, so they're kind of shallower as you want them. And all I'm going to do is just pop a bit of adhesive onto those. And actually I want my Seal Plus for these because these are a mechanism. So a good couple of strips there. And I'm just popping the base one in first, and you can see I'm folding that flat, and then that will pop up like so. Okay, so do the same on the other side. Again, it's a mechanism, needs nice strong adhesive for this. Again, so it's the shorter piece that's going at the bottom there. Tuck that in. And fold it flush and close the card. So now we've got our pop-up. So all we need to do is just add our flowers onto that. And to make it easier, what I'm doing is I'm just trimming that stem down very slightly so that we've got more to kind of add onto our tab. Just there. So I'm probably just come slightly less actually on those. Adhesive on the bottom. Again, they're popping up, but you want the adhesive just to be on this, you don't want it popping out at all. So if you do as I've done here and you've got a little bit, just take your finger or a pokey tool or the end of your scissors and just make sure that that adhesive is on the back of your flowers. Again, pop in, good squash down, pop in, good squash down. Let's add our panel to the front, and this is one that obviously isn't going to, it folds flat, but it isn't going to, it's going to incur a bit of extra postage, but I think it's worth it. Or obviously you could give it to somebody as well. So closing the card up, we're just popping that layer on the front there. I'm going to pop a couple of dimensionals on the edge of my sentiment, and a little bit of adhesive on the end there. And there we have our fun pop-up card, which as you open it, pops down. And now if you wanted to, you could pop a panel on the side here for your sentiment, or pop a panel on the back. But how about that for a pretty pop-up card? Thanks for watching. Come back and see me again soon, and please hit the subscribe button. It really does make a difference to me. And you'll see all the links to the products either on my link in my blog or in the description bar below this video as well. So thanks for watching. See you soon. Bye now.